Going to the next part. Now, how to find the direction of the force that is acting on a current carrying conductor. So, we use a famous rule, that is Fleming's left hand rule. Now, in Fleming's left hand rule, you take the left hand. Okay. Now, you can see in the picture your thumb, your first finger, that is your index finger, and your middle finger. Okay. You can see your thumb, your first finger, and your middle finger of your left hand is kept mutually perpendicular to each other. If your middle finger, that is your second finger, indicates the direction of the electric current, your index finger indicates the direction of the magnetic field, and your thumb indicates the direction of the force. So Fleming's left hand rule states that the left hand thumb, the index finger, and the middle finger are stretched so as they are perpendicular to each other. So if the index finger is in the direction of the magnetic field, the middle finger is in the direction of the current, then the direction of the force is indicated by the thumb. So this is what your Fleming's left hand rule. Now, how to remember? So remember the phrase EMF, where E stands for electric current, M stands for magnetic field, F stands for force. So in this way you can remember in terms of EMF, but remember the direction. The direction is anti-clockwise. That means you are going from, say, your electric current to magnetic field to force. Other way of remembering is, as you can see in the picture, force is labeled as F, magnetic field as B, electric current as I. So you can remember it as FBI. You know, it is a famous investigation agency. Or you can remember the third way, F, that is force, B, magnetic field, and electric current I. And the third way is F stands for father, M, that is your magnetic field, for mother, and electric current, or you can call it as electric current as I. So father, mother, I, or father, mother, child. So in this way you can remember the which finger stands for which physical quantity. And also remember that Fleming's left hand rule is used to find the direction of the force that is acting on the conductor when it is placed in an external magnetic field. The next topic related to the force acting on the conductor when it is placed in an electric field finds an application. Now this application is electric motor. Now this electrical motor we have in various appliances like electric fan. Now electric fan, we have this electrical motor. Let us see how this electric motor looks from inside. So you can see in the diagram, A, B, C, D is a rectangular coil. It is placed in an external magnetic field of polarity north and south. Particularly it may be a bar horseshoe magnet, and the side A of the conductor is fitted with a slip ring, and side D is fitted with another slip ring. Now also you can see two contact point, and these two contact point are the brushes. They are connected to the battery, and the battery is connected to the cell. So the electric motor consists of this rectangular loop of copper wire having resistive coating. It is placed between the north pole and the south pole of a magnet. Then the two ends of the loop, that is A and D in the picture, are connected to two halves, that is X and Y are the split ring. These two halves of the split ring, X and Y, have their outer conducting surfaces. They are in contact with two stationary carbon brushes. Now remember, it's a stationary. That means these carbon brushes do not move. They are E and F respectively. So when the current flows through the branch AB of the loop from A to B through the carbon brushes E and F, since the direction of the magnetic field is from north pole to south pole, so the external field is having direction from north to south. So according to Fleming's left hand rule, a force is exerted on So according to Fleming's left hand rule, a force is exerted on the branch AB, and when you apply the rule, you will find that the direction of the force exerted on the branch AB is downward, and therefore the force exerted on the branch CD is in the upward direction. Thus, the loop and the axle start rotating in an anti-clockwise direction. So you can see the working, how it moves. So after half rotation, the two halves of the split ring, X1, X and Y, come in contact with the carbon brushes F and respectively. Earlier it was A and D, now F and E. So the current in the loop starts flowing in the direction DCBA. Therefore, again a force is exerted on the branch DC in the downward direction and on the branch BA in the upward direction, and the loop continues to rotate in an anti-clockwise direction. Thus, the current in the loop is reversed after each half rotation, and the loop and the axle continue to rotate in the anti-clockwise direction. So basically this is how the working of the electric motor. Now you might be wondering that why the coil is rotating. Okay, we know that the force is acting on the coil when the current is passed through the coil, and this coil is kept in an external magnetic field. The coil has been rotated because of the force. The reason is that when the current passes through any conductor, a magnetic field is produced around the conductor. Also, there is a presence of external magnetic field. This means that two magnetic fields interact with each other. When the two magnetic fields interact with each other, a force is produced, and because of this force, the coil starts rotating. So the particular instrument, that is galvanometer, works on the same principle of electric motor. Not only galvanometer, we have another instrument like voltmeter, ammeter, also works on the same principle of an electric motor. Also, I gave you example about the electric fan. The electric fan also works basically on the principle of electric motor. So in this case, we have supply electrical energy, and the output that we obtain is mechanical energy, or in particular the kinetic energy. So the current produces the motion in the conductor. So important thing in DC motor you have to remember, or electrical motor, is that you are supplying a DC current through the brushes, through the split ring, then through the rectangular coil, and this rectangular coil is kept in an external magnetic field. So when the current passes through the coil, a magnetic field is produced, and when the magnetic field is produced, a force is produced. So you can see in the picture the working principle of the electric motor and also the galvanometer, which works on the same principle of electric motor. Now, when Oersted found or observed that when a current is passed through any conductor, a magnetic field is produced. So Faraday thought, if current can produce a magnetic field, why can't a magnetic field produce a current? So he performed some of the experiment to demonstrate that a magnetic field can produce current. So he had this one of the experiment. Now in this experiment you can see there is a galvanometer which is connected to a solenoid. Okay, so there are 4 such solenoids which are kept on the 4 corners, and you can see a bar magnet, okay, with such that the north pole of the first bar magnet is pointing towards the left side of the coil, whereas the second bar magnet, which is below, and you can see the south pole of the bar magnet is pointing towards the coil or the solenoid in particularly. So now let us see what happens. Initially observe that the galvanometer needle is exactly vertical. This means that no current is flowing through the circuit. Also, this galvanometer is an instrument to detect the presence of current. So now let us observe that when a north pole of the bar magnet is moved towards the coil, observe what happens. See, when it is moved towards the coil, you can see a deflection in the galvanometer. Again you can observe, see the first coil on the top left hand, see the deflection. Also, you have noticed that on the top right, the solenoid is also showing deflection. Then observe it once more. You can see the north pole of the bar magnet is pointing towards the first coil. Now when I move the bar magnet, see what happens. There is deflection. Also there is deflection in the second coil or the second solenoid, and also note down the direction. Next, when you move the second magnet, again you found the deflection in both the solenoid. Once again we'll see it. Initially the magnets are stationary, so no deflection in the galvanometer. Both the magnets are stationary. Now as the magnet is moved, you can see the deflection in the coil, in both the coil, shown through the galvanometer. Again you can see that when the second magnet is moved, you can see the deflection in the galvanometer. So this means when the magnet was moved towards the coil, there was a momentary deflection in the galvanometer. That means the deflection in the galvanometer was for a small interval of time. Let us see what happens when a bar magnet is moved towards the solenoid. As soon as it is moved towards the solenoid, you can see a momentary deflection in the galvanometer. That means the deflection of the galvanometer lasts only when there is the motion of the bar magnet. Again we'll see the same animation. Observe carefully. Now the bar magnet is stationary and there is no deflection in the galvanometer. You can see the needle of the galvanometer is exactly vertical. That means no current is flowing through the solenoid. Now when I move the bar magnet, observe the deflection in the galvanometer. Now you observe that when the bar magnet was moved towards the coil, there was deflection in the galvanometer. So after observing these two experiments, Faraday had its law, and this law was called as Faraday's law of induction. So it states that whenever the number of magnetic lines of force passing through the coil changes, current is induced in the coil. This is known as Faraday's laws of induction. The current produced in the coil is called as induced current. The word induced current was introduced. This means whenever the magnetic field lines are cut by the conductor, the current is induced in the coil. Now you saw in both the experiment, particularly in this experiment where the bar magnet was moved towards the solenoid, the magnetic field lines were cut by the coil and hence current was induced. Now if suppose the coil was moving towards the bar magnet and the bar magnet was kept stationary, again you will observe that when the coil is moved towards the bar magnet, the magnetic field lines are cut by the conductor, that is the coil, and the current is induced. But if both the magnets and the coil is stationary, there will be no induced current. So the induced current will only happen whenever the magnetic field lines are cut by the conductor. Now one question for you, if suppose the bar magnet and the coil, they are moved in the same direction, that means if the bar magnet and the coil, they are moved in the same direction, maybe towards the right hand side of the screen or towards the left side of your screen, will you observe the deflection? Just think over it. I think you will never observe the deflection, because when they are moved in the same direction, no magnetic field lines are cut. That means magnetic field lines are, whenever the magnetic field lines are cut, then only the current is induced. So this was famous Faraday's laws of induction. So in this he proved that what Oster told, that if current produces magnetic field, Faraday demonstrated that this magnetic field can also produce current, in fact induce current. So in this case, Faraday's laws of induction illustrated that motion causes induced current, exactly reverse of Oster's experiment. So Michael Faraday application of this law are very important in our day-to-day life. So to find the direction of the induced current, we use Fleming's right hand rule. Now in this case, again, the index finger or the first finger of your right hand indicates the direction of the magnetic field. The thumb indicates the direction of the force. Then the middle finger or the second finger of your right hand indicates the direction of the electric current. So Fleming's right hand rule states that if the central finger or your second finger, forefinger, that is your index finger, and thumb of your right hand are stretched mutually perpendicular to each other, as you can see on the screen, and the forefinger points to magnetic field, the thumb points in direction of the motion, then the central finger in the direction of induced current. So this means Fleming's right hand rule is used to find the direction of the electric current. So if you are stretching your thumb, your first finger and your middle finger such that they are mutually perpendicular to each other. So if your thumb is pointing in the direction of the force, your index finger is pointing in direction of the magnetic field, then your middle finger will indicate the direction of the induced current. Again, you can remember this as FBI, okay, but now this FBI is in a clockwise case, okay, or you can remember as father, mother, child. So the working of the Faraday's laws of induction is employed in an AC generator. Now let us see what is the construction of an AC generator, and also we'll see how the AC generator works. So you have two poles of a horseshoe magnet. They are labeled as north and south. In between you kept a conductor, a rectangular conductor. You can see PQRS are the rectangular conductor. The end P is connected to a slip ring R1. The end R1 is connected slip ring. Now we'll see the construction of an AC generator and how AC generator works. So here we consider the two poles of a magnet, north and south. In between the two poles of a magnet, we have kept a rectangular conductor PQRS. The end P and end S, you can see they are connected through a slip ring, and you have a brush B1 which is connected to the slip ring R1, whereas the end S is connected to a slip ring R2 and brush B2. Now these two brushes are connected to a load resistor. We will see what is the function of this load resistor. Now the dotted line indicates the axis of rotation. So in this case, the axis of rotation is, say for example, anti-clockwise. That means the side RS is moved upwards and the side PQ is moved downwards. So whenever this happens, the magnetic field lines are cut by the conductor. So whenever the magnetic field lines are cut by the conductor, the current is induced. Now during the half cycle, you can see that PQ is moved downwards and RS is moved upwards. Then whenever the magnetic field lines are cut, you can see the current is induced. Then half the rotation, when half the rotation is completed, now you can see earlier it was Q on the left hand side, that is towards the south pole, PQ. Now you can see half a rotation, RS is now towards the south pole. Again RS was towards the north pole. Now after half rotation, QP is towards the north pole or towards the side of the north pole. So in this way, during the half the cycle, the position has interchange. Also you can see that B1, B2 and R1, R2, the position has not interchanged, okay. So that's why this R1 and R2 are called as slip ring. That means the conductor is slipping through it, whereas B1, B2 are the stationary brushes. So during this motion of the conductor, the current is induced and the output is connected, and this is how we get the working of an AC generator. So important thing in an AC generator is, so long as the conductor is cutting the magnetic field lines, then current is induced. Also, the function of the brushes. The brushes are important to maintain the electrical contact with the slip ring. And the function of the load is, now since the induced current is produced in an AC generator, in that case the output may be of maximum magnitude, maximum value. So for maximum value it can damage the entire parts of the generator. So in order to prevent the overloading of the, say, the generator, a load resistance is used so that the appliances is not getting damaged. So this is a function of a load generator. Now these AC generators are employed to produce the induced current. So examples are hydroelectric power station. So when the water falls on this blade, the blades rotates, and when the blade rotates, okay, in the presence of an external magnetic field, the current is induced, and that's how we obtain the induced current.